Hi, this is Nick Veach. Today I want to talk about a new kind of crime. It's facilitated by the Oppression Olympics. What you have here is people who are, for example, higher up on the social ladder of sympathy, of oppression, who can then utilize the protections which are issued to them out of sympathy from the public. They can use their protections to then attack people who are lower down on the tier. So what you have here today is you have a transgender person, a guy who says he's now a woman, but has not undergone the snippety snip. And what he's doing is he's abusing lesbians, because lesbians are less sympathetic characters today than transgender people are, and he's manipulating the law to shake people down through an extortion racket, perhaps even procure sexual services gratis. I mean, Lord knows what the hell is going on. Anyway, it's pretty interesting stuff, and it's rather predictable, and I think you find it illuminating. So let's check this out. Oh yeah, before I forget, this video features two people, two personalities, two media influencers. One's Graham Linehan, the other is Megan Murphy. And so who are these people? Okay, so who is Graham Linehan? Well, born on 22nd of May in 1968, he's an Irish comedian who, in collaboration with Arthur Matthews, has written or co-written a string of television comedies. He is best known for creating or co-creating the sitcoms Father Ted, Black Books, and the IT Crowd. Linehan is an active Twitter user. In 2011, he perpetrated a Twitter hoax around Osama bin Laden being a fan of the IT Crowd. So he's a comedian. And let's see how popular he is on, let's say, Twitter today. What do they got to say about him? Here we go. How can a man like Graham Linehan create a program like the IT Crowd which made you fall in love with quirky, nerdy characters who didn't conform, and then spend the last few months attacking minorities and nonconformists every night? Depressing use of his platform. And another one. Graham Linehan has fucked a gay man's career if you ever thought he was ever an LGBT ally. BT Bubs. Pardon me? He's out for his own viciousness, not rights. Whatever that means. So gutted that Graham Linehan has turned out to be a grade A cunt, because I fucking love the IT Crowd so much. Anyway, my weird imitation of a female voice. I have to work on that. Anyway, he's also noted here on Wikipedia for his anti-transgender activity. But this is where it gets really weird and interesting. Linehan has tweeted extensively about transgender issues, which he became involved with following an episode of the IT Crowd he had written in which a character unknowingly dates a woman who is later revealed to be transgender. Linehan has described himself as being skeptical of the self-identification of gender, objecting to privileged white people saying you must accept anyone who says they're a woman. Right, this is the deal. He objects to privileged white people saying that you must accept anyone who says they're a woman. He has said that anyone suffering from gender dysphoria needs to be helped and supported, so he's in favor of helping and supporting people who are transgender. And has voiced concern over early transgender intervention for children. Yeah, exactly. How can you tell what kids, what they really want, and how do you know they're not going to change their mind in 6 months, a year, or whatever? Anyway, we needn't stay with that or stick with that or whatever. Linehan has compared transgender activism to Nazi Germany, saying if you were around the time of something terrible happening like Nazism, would you be one of the people who said, this is wrong, despite being opposed? In other words, he's very opposed to transgender activism. In a statement to Pink News about his comments, Linehan said, when a magazine purportedly for gay people collaborates in homosexual erasure by indulging the straight fantasy that men can be lesbians, something has gone deeply wrong. In other words, because maybe this is obscured by my quaint accent, he's talking about straight dudes who have this fantasy that they can be women, and they're collaborating in getting rid of homosexual erasure. By that he's talking about getting rid of, constraining what lesbians can do. We'll get into this. Linehan has described the anti-transgender lesbian protesters at the 2018 London Pride event as heroes. Okay, so just talking about homosexual erasure. Let's get into that a little bit. What does that involve? Here we have a Guardian article, Graham Linehan giving police warning after complaint by transgender activists. We don't need to get into the details of that. But what's interesting is this. Okay. Linehan highlighted a petition he had signed calling on Stonewall, an LGBT charity, to acknowledge the conflict that exists between transgenderism and sex-based women's rights. Now, so what's the conflict between transgenderism and sex-based women's rights? Well, it comes down to this. The person with whom he was in conflict with, somebody, a Madam Hayden, transgender woman, or what a man, or whatever it's called, beats the hell out of me. She, I guess it's a she, was also among the activists who pressurized the Billboard company to remove a poster in Liverpool which said the dictionary definition of woman was an adult human female because it was offensive. Okay, so what is this? So what's the big deal? Well, what the big deal is this: if you're a lesbian, you want to date other women. Can you refuse the advances of, or not the advances, but can you refuse, for example, let's say your dating pool is exclusively women. Can you deny access to that dating pool to a man who identifies as a woman? Now, because there's no way to prove or disprove that a person really is transgender, what happens then is you have the introduction of perverts. Perverts see this as a way to get there, as a wedge. They get their foot in the door and then jump right in the room, okay, and surround themselves with lesbian women, and they can pursue their fantasy of shagging a lesbian, and that's what this is all about. And you think, well, could this ever happen? This would never happen. Nobody would ever violate transgenderism in such a manner. Well, come on, that's ridiculous. Of course you're going to get crooks and scumbags who are going to do this, and of course it's already happening. Okay, and this video is care of Megan Murphy, and so who's Megan Murphy? Megan Emily Murphy is a Canadian writer, journalist, and founder of Feminist Current, a radical feminist blog and podcast. The Feminist won the Best Feminism Blog Award in the 2012 Canadian Blog Awards. Canadians actually talk like this nowadays? Wow. Well, I'm one to talk because I speak with an American accent, and I'm not a Yankee Doodle Dandy myself. Based in Vancouver, Murphy has written for CBC News, The Globe and Mail, National Post, Rebel.ca, and The New Statesman, among others, on women's issues from a radical feminist perspective, writing critiques third wave feminism, transgender rights, the sex industry, and exploitation of women in mass media. Oh, what a headache to talk like that. Anyway, whatever, it's just an accent, I guess. It could be worse. On November 17th, 2017, Twitter announced, and this is where it gets interesting, that it had updated its rules and policies to include abuse and hateful conduct. The change took effect on December 18th. Beginning in August 2018, Murphy's Twitter account was locked more than once after she tweeted about issues involving trans women. Twitter permanently suspended Murphy's account on November 23, 2018, and we'll get into why in this video. She will, anyway. On February 11th, 2019, Murphy filed a lawsuit against Twitter in response to her banning. Good for her. Congratulations. Okay, so let's join Graham Linehan and Megan Murphy here in the middle of their discussion here. It's quite interesting.
Here, which is no one knows what the truth is. The truth has become very, very muddled. You and I know that lesbians are being pressured through all sorts of different ways into accepting trans women in their dating pool. But the wider world just simply doesn't know it. And when you tell people, they don't believe it. No. Can we move on to that, actually? What have you seen? What evidence have you seen of this? Because it's something I've been talking about a lot today, of the coercion that, or is it coercion that's going on at the moment?
With regard to lesbians?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, trans ideology cannot coexist with lesbianism, right? Like a lesbian can't exist if we aren't going to say that women are female, because of course lesbianism is about being specifically attracted to other females and not to males. So if lesbians are now being told that they have to consider males as sexual partners if they identify as women, despite the fact that they still have male bodies, then that just means lesbians have to be attracted to whoever, so then they're not lesbians anymore. Like, it's so ridiculous, and it's so crazy to me that people aren't seeing this as like really repulsive, like bullying and pressuring lesbians into sleeping with men or dating men. I mean,
when I talk to people about it, they don't believe it's happening. So can you? I mean, I'm not sure how much you know about that particular area, but I imagine you're all across it. So that's why I'm asking. But
yeah, I mean, I can imagine if I brought this up with friends, they would think this is absolutely ridiculous, and there's some sort of figment of my imagination. that this is some kind of, what do you call it, reductio ad absurdum, the kind of worst case scenario, in order to make a kind of a sarcastic point, that you think this would never actually come around and be the case, but of course it does. And whatever scumbags and whatever else see an opportunity to get a leg over on normies, they're always going to do so. And how people didn't foresee this in the first place is beyond me. It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't spend any time on this topic, and I didn't foresee this phenomenon. But at the same time, now that it's happened, I mean, come on, it's staggeringly obvious that something like this was going to happen in some way, shape, or form.
What kind of forms does the coercion take?
Well, I don't know, because, this is just from I'm not a lesbian, so I can't speak from personal experience, but other lesbians, especially young lesbians in the Vancouver community, I mean, there's quite a big queer community here in Vancouver, and I think it's really bad for young lesbians because they, I say the queer community is big, but it's also small. Like, we're still talking about a minority population, and so there's not that many people for lesbians to hang out with in Vancouver, so they're trying to find their people. They want to hang out with other lesbians. They want to participate in the queer community and in queer activism and go to queer nights and queer bars and stuff. And this trans activism has taken hold, and so I think the pressure is quite harsh. And from what I'm also told, I also don't use dating apps because, well, I mean, I'm in a relationship, but even if I were not, I think that dating apps are weird and gross. But but yeah, like, lesbians are always saying that there's like dudes popping up in their feeds, so they choose women only in their preferences on the dating apps. But like, then men show up, and I mean, I think often, like we were talking about before, often they're kind of fetishists. Like, it's like, that you don't pass as a woman. That these women don't want to date you because they've specified that they only want to date other women. And you're showing up in their dating apps as an option and wanting to engage with these women and trying to engage with these women. Like, it's like trickery, and like it's like some weird power game, or they're getting off on it or something. It's gross. Like,
and it's going to happen. Eventually, they're going to be lawsuits filed. People are going to try to get people out of their feed, ban them, or deny them access. And lawsuits are going to, like I say, are going to come into play. People are going to engage in lawfare. Speaking of which, there's a very interesting character who they were talking about before they got to this part of the video. Let's check that out. Okay, in the following, they're going to talk about how Megan Murphy was banned from Twitter, but more importantly, they're going to discuss basically the criminal activities of this person who is either a genuine transgender person or else is a fake. I'll leave you to decide for yourself. But this person is engaging in various activities. What they're doing basically is taking advantage of the liberalization of society to transgress traditional boundaries. So what you have is you have a guy who now identifies as a woman, who's then saying, well, now as a woman I should have access to bathrooms, to women's forums, to lesbian dating websites, to even entering the women's homes, because if you offer a business some kind of service, for example, to get into bikini waxing here from a guy, I should be able to go into your home. You can't deny me access. You can't discriminate against me, because that's a violation of the law, because you're a business. You cannot discriminate against people of gender or color. So what happens is you have a woman who's alone, and then you have a pervert who can then gain access to her home, right, by himself, and you can imagine all the kind of difficulties this is going to present. Now, of course, what's in it for the crook? Well, the crook just gets a total rise out of violating social norms, out of imposing himself upon somebody else. If he can give in, acquiesce to his sadistic impulses, and he can then try to force people to do things against his will. The whole thing is just ridiculous, but it's entirely predictable, and how people didn't see this coming from a million miles away is beyond me. Anyway, let's check it out, see what they got to say.
I don't know how I saw it, whether it was a screen grab or something, but I saw the tweet that you banned from Twitter from, and we can't talk about. We'll probably get chucked off Twitter if we mention his name. So let's not say his name. But you were banned for saying the words about a certain person. That's him.
Yeah. So I identified a person who didn't want to be talked about. Essentially, this individual is, going around the internet and threatening people with litigation or having them banned from various social media platforms, including, I think, WordPress, for saying his name and for discussing things that he's done, which are unethical, to say the least. Yeah.
My favorite ones that I've seen are the asking for advice on how to approach young girls to talk about how they insert tampons. I mean,
what's interesting about that, though, is that it's not just a query about how to insert a tampon. And imagine this scenario: you have a guy who's not done surgery yet, so he's still, physically a male. And he's asking questions about how to insert tampons. Well, to what end? Right. Well, you can tell what end, because what he doesn't mention here is that the guy would include a photograph of tampons to facilitate his query about how to use them. But within the shot of the tampon, there would be a massive dildo. I mean, come on. Obviously, this guy's gaming the system, and he's trying to frighten, intimidate, or titillate, or whatever he's trying to do. He's trying to push boundaries, transgress norms. He gets off on it. He's a freak, and it's a violation of the whole ethic of liberalizing, norms between men and women, or whomever, transgender people, etc., etc. Anyway, to continue.
I mean,
it's the most extraordinary thing. And the thing is, I tell that one of the things I find so hard about this discussion, sorry to ramble on, but one of the things I find so hard about this discussion is when you try to tell people these stories, they're so grotesque and so horrible that people shut down. They either don't want to hear it or they don't believe it. Mm-hmm. But the sheer nature of some of the craziness is such that they just can't take it in. People look at me like I have two heads when I tell them some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people don't want to believe it, and I think that if people do believe it, then they have to contend with the fact that this is what a lot of feminists have been warning people about in terms of gender identity ideology and all this legislation, is that if we go along with all of this, what might happen is that men who are predators will have access to female facilities, female-only spaces, or will be able to, for example, sue estheticians who decline to give them a Brazilian bikini wax.
Yeah. Let's talk about what this person did, although obviously we won't say his name.
Okay, we'll get into that in a second. But I mean, you can see, the reason I'm sure that there was this kind of pushback when people were warning about what was going to happen, about perverts were going to game the system, was that people thought, well, this is some excuse manufactured by conservatives. When, of course, anybody with an IQ over 85 could extrapolate out and see, no, this kind of thing is actually going to happen. People are going to game the system. But people always do. If they see an avenue for getting what they want, via unscrupulous means, crooks, bad guys, are always going to do this kind of thing.
Can you sorry, it's the time we're both interviewing each other, but I'm
really
excited. I'm excited to have you here because I feel like you were shut down so violently that I'm really excited about being able to tweet this at some point and get it out there. So let me ask you, because a lot of people don't know this story, what did this person do? Can you explain the beautician story?
Right, so here in Vancouver, or in the Vancouver area, so including the suburbs, this man was calling local estheticians and asking them to give him a Brazilian bikini wax. And when the estheticians declined and said, we only offer this service to women, and some of these women, worked out of their homes. So this is a situation where you would be alone in your house with a man. So naturally, women would feel uncomfortable doing that. But also, apparently, I don't know all that much about Brazilian bikini waxes, but apparently, to wax a man's genitals is different than waxing women's. Yeah. So it's an entirely different service, and you need a different kind of wax, I guess, and it's a different training. So, I
wish someone had said yes. Just one. It would only take one person to say yes, and he wouldn't be a problem.
I think Miranda Yardley told me that she would gladly give him a Brazilian bikini.
Yes, with the wrong glue.
So it sounds like there's some people who are willing to help him out with that. But so these women declined and said, no, we only offer this service to women. And then he tried to sue a bunch of them. He took a bunch of them to human rights court. And I believe he's dropped all, if not most of the cases since then. And I can't confirm for sure why, but I've heard that
it's the attention, I guess.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't speculate, but there has been. I do have an idea of why he dropped the cases, and
tell me later.
Yeah, but anyway, so and this person also.
And this con is not just for sexual titillation; it's also for cash.
Too?
I'm trying to find it. Hold on a sec. What did I say? Oh yeah, he said we serve the public conversation. And I
This is the, I think, a CEO at Twitter.
IRL removes Megan Murphy from Twitter for misgendering a paedophilic con man.
Yeah.
You know,
The
which is
public
about,
conversation is, well, it's all about protecting pedophiles and scam artists.
exactly. And funny enough, like
She means Twitter's all about protecting pedophiles and scammers.
what's interesting about the person who came after you and came after those women who were offering Brazilians is that I heard someone say, and I don't know how true this is, maybe you can fill me in on this, but wasn't the grift in this particular case to sue these women, threaten to take them through the courts, and then ask them for go away money, for nuisance money, for go away money, to basically say, I won't sue you, but you have to pay me, I don't know, $1,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. And this individual has a history of doing this to many other businesses, although just as a regular man, not as a trans woman. I mean, I just suspect that he saw this as an opportunity to, you know, a person who has a long history of going after businesses to sue them for all these like ridiculous / illegitimate claims, like, I ordered a pizza and my pizza turned up all messed up and now you owe me free pizzas for life, like that kind of thing. And he's involved in so many different court cases. I don't know if you've seen all these court documents floating around, but, you know, he's suing a theater company because they lit sage or incense and it gave him a panic attack, and he's suing... You know, like, this is his thing. This is his MO. Like, it's clearly, like, I don't know if it's how he makes a living or what, but, like, this is just the next thing, but now it's being...
Okay, I'll wrap it up with that then, basically. I just wanted to point out a sort of LGBT plus or transgender, whatever else, kind of scam. I mean, you knew these kind of things were going to happen because this, as you can see in this particular instance, you've got a guy who's just been taking advantage of loopholes in the law, basically to use nuisance lawsuits as a way to extort money out of people. I'm sure the cost of hiring a lawyer for a basic, let's say, legal procedure might be something, or legal defense might be something like $10,000 or something like that. So what he does is he manufactures an excuse to come after you. In this instance, he's saying I'm a woman. You're denying me your services in your home, that your business, you're not entitled to do that. So I can use various legal avenues to wage lawfare, LAWFARE, against you. He knows that it's going to cost you $10,000 to hire a barrister, and so he says, "Okay, I'll let you off the hook for $5,000." So he approaches 20 different people with this. 10 of them tell him to get lost, and they're stubborn about it. But say 10 of them acquiesce, and they pay him $5,000. Well, 10 times 5 is 50,000. That's pretty good for what could be a month or a couple months' work. $50,000 each quarter. That's $200,000 a year if you can pull it off. If you're in a big city, right? We can work a scam like this. You can do it in one city, then move on to another city, etc., etc. You make a career out of this, and people do. Anyway, I just thought I'd point this out. Again, I didn't see this specific instance, coming, but now that it's here, I'm not at all surprised, and I'm shocked anybody would be surprised by this kind of thing. It's obvious that it was going to happen. Anyway, okay. Thanks for watching. If you like what you heard, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.